And we're live. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you. You're listening to Restore the Republic, the voice of the people who've had enough. Enough of the corrupt judges, enough of the rogue cops, enough of the lawyers who twist the law, and the politicians who trample it. This is the show that dares to ask, what happened to the du jour American government, and how do we get it back? I'm your host, Sheriff Andrew Wank on the unincorporated Richland County, Ohio. And every week we expose the lies and decode the legal traps that empower you to reclaim what's rightfully yours. No fluff, no compromise, just fact. And with me as always, Sheriff Adam Bonner on unincorporated Summit County, Ohio. How's it going, Adam?
Excellent. Hey, good to be on again. How's everything up your neck of the woods?
Going good. Yeah, it's an uphill battle, but I'm taking the task on, with open arms, Anyways, today we're going to explore one of the hottest topics out there that people just don't realize, jurisdiction. It is the invisible battlefield. People don't see it, people ain't aware of it, but it's one of the most foundational concepts that there is. There are three primary jurisdictions that the people need to know about. There's the land and soil. That's one jurisdiction. The land jurisdiction, the sea jurisdiction, and the air jurisdiction.
State. Yep.
Yeah. So the land, sea, and air. And if the acronym is for law, LAW, land, air, and water. Those are the jurisdictions. Most Americans unknowingly operate in the maritime admiralty jurisdiction law. It's the law of the sea, because their lawful identity was stolen from them at birth. They didn't even recognize it, but it's been stolen at birth. So we'll start off with Adam. Maybe you can go over these three jurisdictions one at a time and let the people know what kind of about.
Well, I mean, you kind of got your states of the union, your nation states, which are your counties. So as far as land jurisdiction goes, it's where living men and women domicile. It's a realm of common law, from its inception. It started in the small towns. It started with the American Civil Peace flags. We already talked about rebellion during the Boston Tea Party and it being used as a form of rebellion. It's been around since prior to the Old Glory flag. We have natural rights here and local governance. So this is a jurisdiction of the soil, where you should have deep and rich relations with your community. It should be people helping people in self-governance. Nobody's above anybody else. It's just everybody has the same rights. God-given, inherent, unalienable rights.
Yeah, we talked about that before, didn't we? How, in a democracy, the mob rules. Good thing is the American government isn't a democracy.
Right.
A Republican form of government, which individual rights is what it's all about.
Yep. Well, I mean, to kind of get into it a little bit more, so you'll have these communities that get together, they come up with their things of importance that they want to see changed or to make a proposal for change. This is where, the creation of your jural assemblies, groups of people who come together to self-govern under the original Constitution. So for instance, if, you wanted more developing or you wanted to keep development out from maybe your neighboring nation state, that would be where you would go. Usually it would be like what we would kind of look at like a border council meeting today. It would be similar, but back then they were using churches and halls and even pubs where they would have fist fights, go back in and handle business.
Well, I wouldn't mind having a council meeting at a pub once in a while, would you?
Oh, hell no. Right.
Yeah.
So, as far as sea jurisdiction goes, sea jurisdictions, where you're going to find all of your piracy, your maritime and admiralty law. So this is where, all of those types of man-made things in commerce, like contracts and corporations, and that's the realm of their shipping lanes. So insurance and international trade, this is where the U.S. government operates for various purposes of those corporations. Somebody's got to keep them in line and in check, but we'll touch on that here in a few minutes. So, but as a corporate entity, like when you're interacting with banks, these administrative tribunals that they call courts, or the foreign subcontractor agents that call themselves government, you're often operating under sea jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it. That's why, hence the title of this, it's the hidden or invisible battlefield, which it really is. You're crossing numerous jurisdictional lines daily, and you're not even aware of it because we're not taught these types of things. And even public and private education, colleges don't talk about it. I have friends who are historians, at like the PhD level. They get really peeved, when you start bringing up this type of stuff. And it's almost like it's a conspiracy theory, but it's really not. It's just lost history that's slowly emerged, through people getting together and doing research. And I think what the problem is it's maybe indifference, because, when you spend $250,000 or $300,000 on an education and you don't learn about this stuff, and you're supposed to be a subject matter expert in that area, I could see how that would ruffle feathers.
Yeah, what blows me away really is it deals with jurisdiction, but it's just the fact that people, that I see on Facebook all the time talking about the U.S. government, like they are a government. They don't get the concept that these people are just governmental service providers. We gave them a contract to provide services for us, the Americans. These guys are our subcontractors. Can you people get that in your head? They are not the government.
Well, I guess one of the easiest analogies would be to kind of treat it like a big business, right? Corporation business, right? Who is at the top of the business, the corporation? A president.
CEO.
Who's under him? Usually some type of CFO, CEO, CFO, and so on down to the cronies that do all the work and get paid shackles. So, it's kind of it's easier if you look at it that way. I don't want to say service or any of these departments. I mean, there's chains of command in pretty much everything to do with corporations, LLCs. I mean, there's some type of hierarchy there. It's kind of ridiculous. You have to have a license for damn near everything these days. And, well, not where we operate from. I mean, a lot of that stuff is rhetorical, non-existent, doesn't exist over here in this jurisdiction, and for good reason, because much like separation of church and state, it's not supposed to be brought into our assemblies. It's not supposed to be what causes the decision making. I mean, that's getting into politics like the de facto does. And as long as we keep that in mind, and we keep all of this indoctrination from the de facto out, we're going to be able to comprehend jurisdiction and not get into arguments about it.
Yeah.
And we should be able to get back to being peacekeepers,
Yeah, talking about the separation of church and state, just real quick, that's what a lot of people don't realize, that that the de facto, these guys in the sea jurisdiction do swear to God with their hand on the Bible about, they're making an oath. And, they don't really follow their oath anyway. But I mean, that's just, for us, the Americans, for us Reeves, we make affirmation, to the people who hold us accountable. We have to fulfill our duties, or they'll take care of us,
Right. Yeah, we're accountable and liable to our people. I mean, we don't get to do plausible deniability or, have our buddy who's doing internal affairs investigation sweep it under the rug for us. That doesn't exist
Exactly.
here. I know it exists. I've seen it happen for most of my adult life. There's no accountability over there. It's very dirty. And, it's not my job to clean it up. Just stay in your jurisdiction. We'll stay in ours. But if you cross over here, we are concurrently running alongside of you. And we do hold general and superior authority over you. You're a guest in our jurisdiction, so to speak. You're lost and dead at sea in that realm, and we're over here on the land and soil. End point. So,
Yeah.
When you talk about things like air jurisdiction, it really is ecclesiastical, in these municipalities that have been dissolved and bankrupt several times. That's a realm where, like the Vatican, the Pope, and, like spiritual authority, have you ever noticed, like, you get a summons, from a place where maybe a magistrate is who you're going before? Well, they're summoning the dead entity, the all caps public usufruct name that they created that's attached to a trust, social security, birth certificate, whatever it might be. A lot of times they create multiples of these things, and we could talk a lot about that stuff at a later time because it ties into the securities fraud.
Yeah,
But
we talked a lot about that black magic that goes on in their C jurisdiction courts, about like you said, the summoning dead entities, and the judge wearing his robe, and, over in England, they still have them.
Yeah, if you look at Black's Law Dictionary, it will break down what a magistrate is. They're a magician. There's a lot of other little breakdowns, my guy, all that type of stuff. Yeah. And it'll tell you basically that they're a magician and a sorcerer. Their job is to summon the dead.
Real quick, Vushu has a couple questions in the chat. So do you guys pay taxes to the corporation? Sales tax, income tax, property tax? Because if you do...
Yeah, sales tax, can't get away from that currently. Income tax, no. We're working on property tax. That's eventually going to be abolished in Ohio. I am aware of a team of people who are pushing to do that, so that you'll see it on your jurisdiction on the bill coming out.
Income tax.
Citizen-led groups. Go ahead.
But you know what? With the sales tax, I can go into like Kroger or wherever, and you have to just fill out. They have a book, where you put down your name, the kind of the agency that you're, And,
yeah, there's a way around it, but it takes time to do all the
it's kind of just impede your time to where it's like, hey, I'm just going to pay the shit,
Yeah, out of convenience and time's sake, a lot of times we end up doing that. But there is a process you can do at Acme, Walmart, Costco. A lot of them do have a process for that, but you just got to jump through the hoops and fill their little forms and stuff out. Sometimes they safeguard that type of information, or they just simply don't know because they don't teach it to the staff. But a lot of times the management, to some degree, they know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you're talking about the air jurisdiction. What was up with that?
So it was originally confined to like Washington, D.C. Like there's a lot of things I've read over the years that say that the majority of the stuff that they're pushing after the corporation is only enforceable in the 10 square miles of D.C. And, that basically that excludes the several other states. Well, we're in one of the several other states. Yeah. But for some reason, these legislators, they just do whatever they want. They write whatever from the highest bidder. And, we end up into a situation where there's a lot of abuses all the way down to these municipalities. even the way the federal district courts run. And there's no oversight. There's no accountability. There hasn't been any for a long time. I mean, if you try to make a complaint to the proper channels, they almost immediately play stupid or try to shut it down.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course, there's theatrics and stuff you see on the media, and they're not doing shit. I'll just tell you flat out, they're not. I mean, it's all nonsense what you see on the news. So believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
Yeah. Well, you know, right before this, we was talking a little bit about that, the statutes at large and stuff. And most of that deals with, the 10 square, they tell you in there, even in the Constitution, that anything inside that 10 square miles is basically what that corporation can do and how they operate. There's no getting outside that boundary, but man, it's just been, I don't even know what year, you probably do, what year that happened where they just started overstepping everything. And, here we are today with same thing. And they're supposed to be in their box,
Well, I mean, there still was a fair chance, to argue a case at the municipal level up into the mid to late 60s. As you get into the 70s, maybe certain areas of the country, but as you get into the 80s, it just became a complete and total circus, especially during the Chevron case and the, when they got it shot down in like 83 and like 85. I mean, here that's been a silent war going on for all these years, going back,
40s, right
30s.
alongside Chevron is EPA versus West Virginia,
Yeah.
where it said that these agencies coming out of DC, these 3-letter agencies, they hold no weight. They can't make up their own rules and have their own powers. And, and it's mind boggling, but it's there. It's in black and white and it's abused all the time,
They're not chartered properly. Their authority, the way the chain works down to them is broken. So there's no way to like research, from the inception to where they are now. I mean, this is why we have oversight. I mean, the FBI doesn't even operate the way that they're supposed to. They're supposed to be oversight for all the police departments and sheriff's departments to investigate things that go on. And look at what it's turned into now. They're picking up the tab and doing their work for them because they're not doing their jobs. That tells you that something's wrong. It's been very wrong for many, many years. And you can see that there's a lot of extended overreach outside of the District of Columbia, where all of that statutory civil, foreign subcontractor agent law belongs. That's where that's it. It belongs there.
Yeah, they're definitely getting it all mingled up, and and
right.
That's why we're here. We're here to straighten the lines back out, get them back into their place where they belong. Because, once in a while I think about the drug, tobacco, what is it? The ATF,
yeah.
And they're only supposed to be regulating that the arms, tobacco, or what is it? Tobacco, firearms, and alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. That's what it is. They're supposed to be watching it going over international borders, which would be from state to state. That's about their only reason of being around. But yet they're in the states, they're in the towns, they're, it's just crazy.
Well, I mean, that's why it's that air jurisdiction is probably the most abstract and the most powerful, because it deals with belief systems, identity, and perceived sovereignty. I mean, corporations can't be sovereign. Only people can have sovereignty.
Yeah.
A state is not a living thing, so it cannot be sovereign. And they've kind of hijacked and usurped. Well, they did 100%. And then flip the script to where, if you're trying to be a sovereign man or woman, now all of a sudden they want to call you titles like sovereign citizen. Well, that's that's one of those buzzwords that was created by them because they don't want people waking up. They want you to live in fear that you're going to get in trouble if you status correct. And most people are peaceful that are status corrected. I mean, there's thousands of them across the
Yeah,
country,
yeah.
across our state, and they don't bother anybody. You know, they're just either professionals that own businesses. I mean, they could be teachers. They could be various things. You know, some of them are operating as dual citizens because of their licenses, but they don't bother anybody. So you're never going to know who they are, and they're never going to, you know, make a peep as far as, you know, their legal system goes. So
Hey, that's what I've been telling the
how are
police
they
chiefs
labeled?
around my county. The
Right.
state nationals here on Richland County, Ohio, they don't even break the statutory laws that aren't real laws. You know, they don't even do that. They just want to be
Yeah,
left
Samantha
alone.
makes
They
a
want to
good
live in
point.
peace.
So
Huh?
she's talking about the what is that? The American something league, the American something league,
Ain't
AIPAC.
that
I'm
is
familiar with that.
something about Israel, APAC?
They're just a bunch of loudmouths. They go on their website and they call everybody this, that, and the other, and
Yeah, well, you know
it's a
what?
bunch of
Anybody can
nonsense.
go on to the FBI website, and right on
Yeah,
there, they will give you a warning, you know, to look out for sovereign citizens. And in that warning, it says that a sovereign citizen is a U.S. citizen who blah, blah, blah. It's their own people that are against them. That's what they're claiming sovereign citizens are. It's not us. We're not even U.S. citizens.
I'm
It's
not
their own
against
citizens
anybody.
that don't like them.
Yeah, I'm not against anybody. I mean, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's treated, with the same.
That's why we fly the peace flag.
And yeah, I mean, everybody's got a shot to speak their piece, and as long as they're not destroying people's property or causing harm to others, no injury, no crime.
All right, Adam. Well, you went over the three jurisdictions a little bit. So
Yeah.
we got out of the C jurisdiction, but how did the average U.S. citizen, how did they get into the wrong how'd they end up in the wrong jurisdiction?
By deception built on fraud. However you want to look at it. I mean, they've been lied to and unlawfully converted into a thing instead of a man or woman, or into some type of, entity. There's a lot of different types of persons. If you look this up, you were converted into a legal person instead of a lawful person or one of the other various persons, which, if you self-govern and you read up on this stuff, you should be able to learn what those things mean and then be able to figure out how to operate in each one of those and keep yourself safeguarded and protected as far as who you're contracting with. Because what we have is a bunch of tacit agreements that are, from their inception, ab initio, they're fraud from the inception. Because for one, how can anybody, in their youth years, 7 years of age or younger, comprehend law or their rights? I mean, your parents can teach you a little bit, at that age, but, your brain's a sponge when you're really young, you absorb. You're just not going to know enough. And your parents didn't even know that they were acting as informants to basically sign you over as chattel property, where then you were monetized. You were, trusts were developed in your name. We
went over that before about just go get your birth certificate, look at it, look at what the signatures, the box for the signature is. It's informant.
Well, law docs here says the county clerk as a ministerial officer of temporal jurisdiction. Well, I think they're all criminals personally. I don't give them, they have ministerial duties. Yes. Do they execute them and discharge their office properly? Probably 95% of the time, 98, no. Here they don't. I haven't seen it in 20 some years, that I've been dealing with them. So, good information to know, though, if that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fraud
so
creates all.
yeah,
Yes.
so anyways, like you were saying, as a child, you're born, your mother signs the papers, and she, under total fraud, they don't give her full disclosure of what she's signing.
Right.
She's signing the child up basically to be trafficked into the U.S. citizenship.
Well, it's that, and it's a matter of governance. If you can't self-govern, then you're going to fall into the bracket where they govern you, and that's what that's about. The problem with it is that, for one, they're taking advantage of somebody who's an adolescent in their terminology, younger than 18 or 21 years of age, to make decisions for themselves, unbeknownst to your mom or dad. um, they acted as an informant and they didn't know any better. That shouldn't, it shouldn't be your fault to deal with the rest of your life because of that. If you go somewhere and you contest it, it should be that easy to go, hey, there's been a mistake. This all caps name, that's not me. That's not proper English. I don't write my name that way. It's not me. Um,
Yeah.
you would think that when you say that, they would stop the trespass right there. But a lot of times you find yourself in these courts and they just steamroll and proceed. And, color of law, practicing law from the bench. They violate their oaths of office if they even have one. Most of them don't have FARAs on record, current ones. Some do, some don't. It varies. A lot of the people I know of don't, or they wouldn't be scared to give it to you if they had it. But then you find issues like fraud and people going and backdating things because when you do a FOIA request and they don't send it, and then, it takes like a year after the fact to get it, but there's nothing on record with the state. There's just, I'm
Yeah.
sick of seeing stuff like that. So I prefer, that they get their shit together because I don't really want to have to hang anybody over stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is the reality. I mean, the law is harsh, but it's the law.
Well, because of what they do to the mother, what they do to her at the birth, have her sign them paperwork. She's basically signing away, the living child, the boy or girl, is separated from their lawful identity. And the corporate fiction becomes the interacting part with the legal system at that point. That's why there's so many these CPS taking kids away from families. They
Right.
just think they have every right in the world to do all this stuff, and they don't.
Well, I've dealt with them before, and I mean, some of those caseworkers that come out. I mean, they really have a lot of audacity. They come out with cops a lot of times, or sometimes deputies, and I mean, they just defame people and treat them like they're the scum of the earth. And a lot of the time, the person that they're yelling at, or trying to take their kids from, is the victim, in the case. And it's just crazy. The system was never supposed to interfere with your family and your family business. That's supposed to be the man of the house's job. And, of course, nuclear families, turned into something modern, disgusting, and despicable nowadays.
Yeah, get nuked.
Literally, yeah. Nobody got the memo when somebody said Air Goodman coming at you. We're doing a modern thing now. Well, like the land, what is it? The air jurisdiction. If you think about it, they're talking about it has to do with belief systems, identity, and sovereignty. Well, wouldn't it then make sense to say that that's where the psyops come from? The agenda to push narratives to get people to conform to ideologies and beliefs and believe fake news and follow their script. I mean, it makes sense to me. I know that there's other things going on, but I'll save that for the end, because that's one of those things that has to do with people believing things as the gospel that they see on social media. And a lot of times there's some very crafty folks that use AI generated stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they can manipulate it and make it look real. But if you would do research, you would find that a lot of that stuff is not true. So,
All right. Well, in these jurisdictional boundaries of the land, air, and water, the de facto, I came up with a couple things here that, they get involved with because of jurisdiction, and it kind of messes up the flow of things. And you want to go over them like that, the forum shopping.
forum shopping.
Yeah.
Um,
How the lawyers choose their courts of favor. And
well, I mean, lobbyists do this stuff best, if you kind of follow what they're doing in DC or at the state levels, with the legislator's office, you'll find lawyers choose courts, that favor clients. Patent trolls file cases in districts known for more lenient rulings. The manipulation of jurisdiction changes the outcome. It's been going on for many, many years. I've heard this being talked about and passed around when I was a kid, about that type of stuff. So again, it goes back to the highest bidder, whoever is willing to go be a liar for whichever topic is paid for, to whatever number, they'll do it for. It is what it is after that. I mean, all I can say is you got to be a scumbag to, represent these pedos and push that narrative and allow school boards to teach all of these things. And it's ridiculous. It's a mental illness. Some of these people have to know that pushing all of those acronyms and all of those agendas and narratives, that's creating mental illness, and it's a mental illness in itself. To push that on the kids and think that that's okay.
Oh, I know. They're just developing. So we get forum shopping, then jurisdictional gerrymandering.
Yeah. Political boundaries are basically redrawn and shifted to legal authority. Voting rights.
That one blows me away. You've seen it year after year during election time, or when they're going to vote on certain bills or whatever. All of a sudden, not county lines, but their jurisdictional lines move so that they add more people into certain counties. And
oh yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I think we witnessed that over the past 8 years a couple different times here in Ohio. But yeah, I mean, it messes with voting rights, school funding, police oversight. These are all affected by invisible lines, because they will not stop to no end. It's just they do what they want to do, and you're not part of the club, so you're not going to know anything about what they're doing. And everything is so vague that they actually do make available to the public. And then come midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, they have their attorneys going real quick, switch everything up, and then boom, that's what gets pushed through. It's been that way for many years. I've witnessed it for most of my adult life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So we had forum shopping, jurisdictional gerrymandering, and another one's executive overreach. They use jurisdictions for executive overreach.
Well, so you got presidents and governors that test the limits of their authority, kind of like what we see the arguments going back and forth now about how the military should be used, and how the guard units on the states should be used, and when they should be activated under presidential authority. That's just, one example. Another's how the borders ran, who's in charge there, controlling better security and deportation and all those types of things. It's all theatrics to me. So, one of my favorite things to talk about, and we talk about it all the time, is mandates and executive actions, which are often stretched outside of their jurisdictional bounds and lawful bounds. But the one that I wanted to come back to is emergency orders. There is no GD emergency anywhere across the country that gives you the authority to usurp your office and strip people of rights and take rights and convert them into privileges and then strip privileges, because that's what's going on essentially, unbeknownst to, U.S. citizens. I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed if I was a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, nowhere in our constitutional contracts that we gave them did it say we give them any kind of emergency powers whatsoever. There isn't any
I don't recall
literature
voting for
like that in any one of the constitutions. But what that brought up a point to me is, just talking about these executive powers and emergency powers. The other day I was sitting in on a town council meeting, city council meeting, and they were going over some, I'm not sure if they were just acts or ordinances for the city. And they always declare the ordinance an emergency. Always.
Oh, like the meters that they forced on everybody that are going to burn their houses down?
Yeah.
I just had my electrical updated, and they came out and forced those on me.
Yeah, well, what I looked up into is all the acts and ordinances that are in this city here, and every one of them was declared an emergency.
Yeah.
So something's up, and people can pull this information up right on the computer about their own town, their own city. It's crazy.
Well, it's to take the taxpayers' money and to launder it through frivolous emergencies to get the federal funding because it's an emergency, which is also another point to bring up, that they're bankrupt. They're dissolved. They've been, and they shouldn't even be operating. That's why they're outsourcing all of the services that they once provided, water services, meter services, electrical, to second and third party companies. I didn't contract with them. Why are you trying to force me to contract with them instead of offering me 3 or 4 remedies to choose on my own, because it's my home, I pay for it, right? And I don't see how they can force things like that and call it an emergency, and that's just not how the law works. So
I know you would think that sooner or later the public would ask them, why is it everything you talk about in these city council meetings an emergency? Please, will you tell the public?
Oh, I'll tell them.
I know, but I'm saying I wish some people around my city or town would start asking their so-called officials.
Put that in your notices, people. Ask questions, demand answers. They work for you. You don't work for them, and you don't take orders from them. I'm not saying go burn a building down. I'm simply saying read the stuff that they're putting out there, trying to pass off as an emergency. Ask questions, and bring up valid points of how it affects the community and actually divides the communities and breaks the communities down, like, excess taxation, property taxes going up, mass inflation, because the piggies didn't eat enough. When is this stuff going to stop? Well, I'll tell you when. It stops when you, the people, get out there and start putting them on notice and letting them know you're watching everything that they do and that they work for you, and you guys have the right and power to remove these people. They don't just get to, secure their bag and stay in those positions and dump on everybody. I got guys that live right up the street that do this district.
Well, you were breaking into it, but the next question would be so how does or what is the solution to all this? What is the solution to all these jurisdictional issues?
Well, are you talking about like a police and federal turf war type of perspective, or
no, just
how the assemblies, well, did we even cover that? What's the solution? Well, the restoration of the jural assemblies, would
There.
be one. And then another would be local bodies of living men and women who reclaim their lawful status. People who govern themselves, not people who are governed by, all them ordinances that we just spoke of.
Yeah, I
They
would
govern
say,
themselves under the original Constitution. They know their rights. These are the people that are going to make the difference. Being a U.S. citizen isn't going to get anything resolved. So
it isn't. And sitting in that C, sitting in the C jurisdiction, not having any rights, not doing anything, it isn't going to help anyone. It's not going to help you or anyone else. That's my big thing. I just see a lot of people sitting around. Well, they're not going to do this. They won't do that. They're not going to give up. Well, okay, then sit there and take it and shut up. Don't say nothing then. I'm not doing that. I changed my political status back to American, and I'm doing something about it. That's what we all need to do. We, get out of that damn U.S. citizenship. I've been saying this shit for a year. It's a foreign freaking corporation, people.
yeah, it's
isn't
really
rocket
not
science,
rocket science. The bottom line is people conform because of the fear tactics that they're inflicting on people. And you just have to be smart enough to know that they don't have the authority to inflict, this fear mongering. I mean, it's a psyop. All these words that they're throwing around, people being terrorist groups or all of that type of stuff. I mean, that's nonsense. They're the ones that actually are paper terrorists, and they're the ones that are actually committing domestic terrorism tactics against the American people. Reverse psychology 101, people. Wake up.
Yeah. We talked about this.
It's not that hard to see.
Last episode. We talked about it in the last episode how, we go, the U.S. they're at war with everybody around the world. We're not the U.S. We're the American government.
Yeah, totally different thing. Another thing that's constantly misconstrued is that people see us and they hear us speak, and I've had people come on and do their little hate rants, and dude, we're not in that jurisdiction. We're not the guy that slammed you on your face and broke your ribs. We're not in that jurisdiction. We enforce public law and common law. We're common law sheriffs. We're not alleged constitutional sheriffs in the C jurisdiction, which, that's a no-brainer too. You can't be both. You can't just pick and choose, when you cross jurisdictional boundaries and your enforcement strategies.
Yeah.
Especially being an administrative sheriff, they're basically usurping an office that they don't even have authority to be in because, the statutory system that they're operating in, or civil equity, whichever it might be, all their collaborative agreements and everything nullify. They're not U.S. citizens.
Yeah, I wanted to say that
they're foreign agents because
I wanted to say that it just takes some of these people to actually look. You see these videos, these auditors, all these people on Facebook getting thrown around, telling the cops right to their face, you made an oath, you made an oath, you made an oath to the Constitution. You know what I mean?
And then they nullified that
oath. Well, the problem is they made an oath to it, but they didn't make. You're not part of that. You're not part of it. You're a U.S. citizen.
Right. What I was trying to say is that, these people, it doesn't require law enforcement background to be a sheriff. It doesn't require, years in that. I mean, it's an elected position, in that jurisdiction. But what I'm trying to say is that these people do not have authority to deputize. They're not in the correct jurisdiction. They're not Americans. They're in a different jurisdiction. They don't have that authority. That's why their guys, their men and women that are in, their departments are appointed. You know, they go through a civil service process, which that's a joke too. Some of these guys go to the academy. You know, some of them go to, you know, colleges, community colleges that have academies there. There's a lot of different academies we have here, but you know, that's all based off statutory, you know, codes, ordinances, all those types of things. I mean, they get very high level traffic citation type stuff and all the codes that go with it. They get a little bit of petty theft training. They work out for a few weeks. They pass a PT test. They go through an interview process. It's really not that difficult. One of the funniest things I've seen is that I took a test that was an identical test here, and I took the same test, you know, a couple counties away, scored off the charts on that one, but the one that I had here was like, for some reason, 2 points below the threshold of, you know, passing the test. And I literally I didn't study for it.
Yeah.
I was just trying to prove a point, you know, but
yeah. Well,
I digress.
You were saying that, you know, the solution is to restore your local jural assemblies, your county assemblies, get them up and running. And these assemblies are not corporate entities. You know, they don't operate under the sea jurisdiction. They are the lawful government of the land, and they have the power to enforce peace, uphold rights, and hold officials accountable. So joining or forming a jural assembly is the way to step out of the corporate fiction and back into your rightful jurisdiction, basically.
Right.
So let's talk about how this affects daily life.
Well, I mean, I want to touch on, there's also district assemblies out there of U.S. citizens, you know, people who are pushing narratives and agendas also. You know, some of them have somehow gotten into, you know, our state's assemblies, and they're causing havoc because the ideologies and belief systems that they have from that perspective is not what we're trying to do here, you know, to be, you know, self-governing and peaceful men and women.
Yeah.
So from there, you know, what you're talking about is, you know, daily life's affected by taxation. You know, are you paying taxes as a corporate fiction? Are you paying taxes as a living man or woman? You know, these are things that, you know, there's remedy for it. There's ways to, you know, to get out of it. But there's a difference as a U.S. citizen versus being a status corrected man or woman. So, you know, you're not even in that jurisdiction for them to levy you or your property.
Yeah.
So, you know, it takes a lot of time to research this stuff. And I mean, as it is, we're starting to find out that, you know, the incorporated United States government, you know, the certain amendments have been, you know, debunked, that they were never lawfully ratified. And, you know, the 16th, the 14th, you know, U.S. citizens don't even get their first 10 amendments. Usually they just look right past all that. So I'm living proof. You know, I was that dude years ago wondering, what the heck, you know, there's no due process, you know, there's no proper notice, you know, they'll send something and that's not proper service. So, you know, they just changed the rules to kind of, I guess, go along with their, you know, fraudulent Ponzi schemes.
Yeah. So back to daily life. You said taxes. What else we got?
I guess off the top of my head, you know, like if we're talking about taxes, we're going to talk about property rights. You know, is the land that you have in a allodial title? Do you own it outright, where it can't be levied? You know, you're not paying on it monthly. There's no need for and different types of insurances that are basically forced down your throat. With inflation, a great point is, you know, have they raised, you know, has it been appraised and they raised the value of your land? Therefore, your insurance goes through the roof. And, you know, I mean, they're literally putting people out in the streets doing that.
It's a circle of madness.
So, or is the property you have registered under a commercial deed? The majority of the people out here, I mean, everything's commercial under a deed, under some commercial title, if they paid it off. Allodial titles are a pain in the neck. 48 states prohibited people from getting land patents. It's not because they had the lawful authority to do so. It's just because, they didn't want you to own land. They want a profit. The piggies need fed. They need your tax money. And that's what it comes down to. A bunch of greedy bastards who want to keep eating off of your taxes. And, the people just need to rise up and say no and get it abolished.
And the weird thing is a lot of these cities and towns talk about they own property. The city cannot own property. The city is a corporation. So
on paperwork they can. That's the only way.
Yeah.
Not physically.
Not physically, yeah. But then you got
real assets, yeah.
Legal disputes affecting your daily life, about being judged under admiralty law. It's supposed, for the people, it should be common law, but once again, you are not, if you're a U.S. citizen, you are not in the land and soil jurisdiction. You're in the sea jurisdiction.
Yeah,
that's why they take you to these admiralty courts.
Yeah, if you don't know who you are, you're going to be treated like you don't know who you are, like an adolescent, somebody that's a chattel slave to the state. And they're going to treat you like, you're a minor child because you haven't stepped forward, corrected your status, your proper age, that means that you can self-govern. You have to step forward and correct your status and let them know that you are of a valid age of comprehension and you can handle your own affairs. And that's where they get you. Another way they get you is through different types of licensing, registration, voting. The voting is a big no-no. They will literally hold you hostage if you vote once. They'll make it a pain in your ass to go down there and rescind that contract or take your name off of their list. And they also gain jurisdiction on you. In that municipality, that's how they gain, one of the ways how they gain jurisdiction on you. So, I'm not giving you a cheat code. I'm just saying it's one of the ways that they traffic you. They are human traffickers.
Well, what you can do, for all this, you can educate yourself by reading some of Anna von Reitz articles. She's got over 5,000 of them. And that's on www.annavonreitz.com. Yeah. Understand the difference between legal and lawful. It's always a winner there. We've talked about this all along, reclaiming your status, correct your records, declare your political status as American, step out of that corporate fiction, join your jural assembly, join your state assembly or your county assembly, either or, we give you the sites to check out, claimyourinheritance.info right there going across the bottom. Check out pktfnews.org. And
so we got law docs. He's saying that all jurisdictions are temporal jurisdiction. It overlays all of it. What's your resources on that? I mean, where are you getting that information? I would like to look at that a little bit further. It's good information to have. We should talk. Then we had another question or two up in here.
Well, before we go, I do want to bring up something about what we were talking about earlier. How do we discuss? We have to discuss the state nationals that are watching, the state nationals, or the citizens that are looking to become a state national. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, on Facebook, on TikTok, and people, this stuff is bullshit. A lot of it, 90% of it is, not all of it, 90%. They're making fake, AI is coming up with all kinds of stuff now, and you got to be able to discern from what's right and what's wrong. And I guess the easiest way would just be, you have to start reading some of this in these books, in congressional records. or older books that, common law stuff. You been seeing that a lot, Adam?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff out there. I mean, I'm not pushing anybody's stuff. I mean, this obviously isn't for everybody. There's a lot of people scared, by the message that we put across because they don't comprehend jurisdiction and that they've been lied to. It happens, you got to wake up and you got to see what's going on around you. You can't just, sit there and conform and comply, and be a good little sheeple. That's what they want.
I know. I've seen something on Facebook about, I've seen it before, but I just seen it here recently about Trump and the New Republic. And I've said this before. Donald Trump is the CEO of a corporation, of a foreign corporation, who just happens to be our American subcontractor. He's our employee, one of our employees. And he cannot take a foreign corporation and just change its name to New Republic.
Right.
And it becomes a New Republic, people. It's going to be the same foreign jurisdiction corporation, just with a new name. So stop the cap.
Well, I got somebody saying that, every state operates under UCC. I mean, to an extent, UCC is used as a filler whenever there's vagueness or ambiguous law, that doesn't really bridge together. So they use UCC to kind of connect it to where, it works to their benefit against you. But you can also learn that stuff to use against them. They just, they typically overlook the fact that you read and then steamroll on you. So for me, I've had better success expressing the trust and letting them know that, I'm not that all caps name, and letting them know that I forgive, the administrator and beneficiary for anything past, present, and future. Therefore, there's no controversy, kick rocks. Don't want to talk about it anymore. Leave me alone. Yeah. So that's just, that's one way.
All right. Well, going on with the New Republic thing and Donald Trump, I just want everybody to know, he can't just change the name. It's like going on. All you have to do is go to Dun & Bradstreet, type in all capital letters, U.S. Inc., U.S. Incorporated. It gives you basically the rundown on that corporation and who the charter is. It's the Crown of England. And it reminds me of, the all caps corporation name. You just look at your ID. That is your all caps corporation name. It's not you. All the stuff ties in together, it's all fraud. It's the way it is. And we got to get out of it. You got to change your status and get out of it. So, I wanted to say, Adam, do you have anybody, or you want to give everybody your socials on Rumble?
Yeah, the Reef Shop Talk 44 on Rumble, and then America's Forgotten Rights over on YouTube. That's pretty much just where I kind of inventory all of these lives over there in a playlist. I have no interest in, making that a full-time thing.
All right. Well, you guys check that out. Check him out over on Rumble. And we do have a Cash App. If you want to support the channel, it's $APC140. If anybody wants to donate. But other than that, I guess we're going to head off. We appreciate everybody for coming. Hope you learned a little thing or two.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, Adam, thanks again for stopping by. And we'll get back into it here in a few days. We need to get out there and change your statuses, people.
Wake up.
Let's get this country back on the right track.
No problem.
Until next time. We'll see you all later. Thanks a lot, Adam.
We will.
Peace.